TGIF, am I right? Am I
You're
right?
You're
I'm
right.
so
It's
right.
time.
You've made it to the end of the week. Time to kick back, relax, and set those lineups, which brings us to why you're actually here for expert analysis on golf, hockey, and even football, which is coming your way on the Sweat over the next hour.
Yeah, so get comfortable, settle in. That all sounds wonderful. We're going to begin with basketball, though. Say hello to our panel, DK Live's Julian Edlow and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca. Guys, splurge or save. That's the name of this game, okay? Anthony Davis's price all the way down to $6,800, very low for the superstar against the Suns because one never knows if he's going to play or for how long. Likely going to be on a minutes restriction again, but that doesn't mean he can't put up enough fantasy points to actually be worth the price and return value. So, Jules, start with you here, pal. Would you take a chance on him for that amount?
I don't see the reason to. It is, I mean, now that he's at $6,800, I do think he's fairly priced to reach roughly 5 times value. But he's going to play, we know he's going to play about 20 minutes. That's what it's been the last few games. That seems to be how they've decided to sprinkle him in. So 30 to 35 DK points, that's probably where he'll wind up. But when you know he's not going to top those minutes anymore, that completely wipes out his ceiling. Whereas, you know, if he was going to play 35 minutes, then he would be in a great spot to get, 50 plus DK points, but that's just not going to happen at this point with him. So he's fine. He's finally priced appropriately, but that ceiling just isn't there with the lack of minutes.
Matty, as we go on with our price check here, $6,800, what do you think?
I still think he's too expensive. I mean, 20 minutes, even if the guy averages 2 DraftKings points per minute, which is a super high rate, that's, what James Harden was averaging, in his prime during that 30 points per game streak. That's still only 40 DraftKings points, which is not even 6x on his current salary. He has zero upside at this price tag. I get it, maybe if you want to use him in cash games, but I don't really feel like there's a need to do that either. It's just too risky of a play, in my opinion. Yeah, maybe he gets you 5x, but I want a guy with a ceiling for more than what Davis gives me at his current price tag.
Guys, Kyrie Irving is the most expensive point guard tonight, $8,900 against the Wizards. Does he deserve to be, though, Matt?
Yes.
Good
playing
answer.
A ton of minutes recently, at least 35 in 3 of his last 4 games, and he's topped 40 in 2 of those games. He's averaging, 1.36 DraftKings points per minute this season. That's the highest mark on the slate. And it's a great matchup against the Wizards. They play fast. They play no defense. The Celtics implied team total is one of the top marks on the slate. So I think it's a great spot to target Kyrie. The Celtics haven't been playing great basketball recently, but Irving has been pretty much a constant for most of the year.
Plus, he can go ISO all day since he hates all his teammates.
That's true.
Sure.
Julian, where do you sit on this one?
Yeah, I think it's fair that he's the highest priced point guard on the slate, but he is in the same neighborhood as a few other guys, and I think point guard is the best position to spend on this slate. You've got Kemba Walker at $8,200 going up against the Nets. That's a team that he's played really well against this season. You've got Trae Young, who's caught fire recently for the Hawks, and John Collins is not going to play for the Hawks, so maybe some more scoring opportunities for Trae Young going up against the Bulls, which is a team that obviously has not fared too well this season. You've got Damian Lillard going up against the Raptors as well. So I agree with Kyrie's price, but you've got these other 3 point guards in the 8,000s right with him, and I think all 4 of those point guards in that range are really good plays. So Kyrie stands out, but just a tiny bit to me above the rest of those guys. I think you want to try and play 2-3 of those.
All right, then, guys, let's get a little bit tougher here. Pascal Siakam, he's been all over the map in terms of his scoring lately. Jules, is he worth $7K against the Blazers?
I mean, he might be and he might not be. That's why he is a
Get off the
classic
fence,
GPP
Jules.
play.
Is he worth it or
He's
not?
a GPP play, Adam. You don't want to play him in cash, like we were just talking about. You've got guys like Anthony Davis. I don't think you want to play him in cash either, but we kind of know what his role is. We know how many points he's going to score or have a good idea of it. Pascal Siakam for $7,000 might get you 60 DraftKings points and really help you out in a GPP. He also might get you 20 DraftKings points and be a bust. Just look at, he got 16 DraftKings points in 25 minutes against Portland earlier this season. So he fell flat on his face in this matchup. So in cash games, you want nothing to do with him in tournament. And this is a game that's probably going to get overlooked, even though it should be a really competitive game between Portland and Toronto. So that's where I would want to get exposure to him.
LaMarca, could you give me something a little more declarative?
Yeah, I'll take the under on 60 fantasy points tonight for Pascal Siakam. No, I think it's too expensive for him. This is a guy that we've routinely paid more like a $6K price tag for this season. He's coming off some great games. I'm not going to knock that, but typically you want to sell guys when their price is high and buy them when they're at their lowest. So this is a clear case where I think you want to sell Siakam. That Raptors front court is still, really deep. And all it takes is one night where maybe he doesn't see the minutes we think, or his shooting isn't working, and it's going to be hard for him to pay off an elevated price tag.
Guys, Montrezl Harrell has also been tough to figure out this season. So, Matt, do you like his price of $6,400?
Yeah, I really like Trez at $6,400. I think that's a very fair price tag for him. Great matchup tonight against the Kings, who have struggled against opposing centers all season. Not a very good rebounding team. Obviously, we know that they play at one of the fastest paces in the league as well. So Montrez should have plenty of opportunities on the glass tonight. He's also been seeing the minutes recently. We have him projected for 28.5 tonight, which is right in line with what he played in his last game. This is a guy who's been well over 1 fantasy point per minute this season, closer to 1.25 fantasy point per minute. So I think that his salary is, there's plenty of upside baked in at $6,400 with him.
I did not know Matt and Trez are so close.
Yeah, they're on a nickname basis.
Yeah, it's a bond. This is nice.
That's amazing. Julian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not friends with the man, but I would play him on this slate for just $6,400. Look at his salary. He was $7,200 earlier this month, so we're getting a pretty good discount on him in a matchup that's been really favorable. He's played Sacramento 3 times this season and is averaging just shy of 40 DK points in those games. So this should be a really fast-paced game. It's got a high projected point total. It's got a close point spread. And he's had a success in this matchup this season. So it kind of checks all the boxes when you include a discount on his salary, where Harrell is, I would say, a much safer play than Pascal Siakam on this slate.
Caris LeVert was shut out in 20 minutes on Wednesday against the Wizards. He's $5,800 tonight versus the Hornets. Would you take a chance on LeVert here, Felix?
I don't think so. He's just been a little inconsistent coming back from this injury. The upside is still there. He's had the 35-point DK point games since he returned, but to go 20 minutes against a team like the Wizards, who play at one of the fastest paces in the NBA, they allow the most points in the NBA. To go 0 for in 20 minutes there is just kind of a red flag. There's a lot of good plays on this slate. There's a lot of injury news. There's a lot of value as we kind of creep towards the end of the regular season, where you don't have to reach on somebody like LeVert, who is coming off an injury and just in, kind of an average spot. There's nothing that really makes him stand out on this slate. So I don't think we need to look at him as a target.
Well, but Matthew, by the same token, maybe an anomaly, right? The guy's averaging 15 actual points a game and almost 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, I just think the role is too inconsistent. I mean, the minutes in Brooklyn are hard to come by. If you look, they have a pretty underratedly deep rotation, especially with D'Angelo Russell playing, 35-plus minutes a night now. So if you look, 3 of his last 4 games, he's been at 26.5 minutes or less. He's scored 18.75 DK points or less in 3 of his last 4 games. He does have some upside, but I don't think he has enough at his current price tag that I'm interested in looking at him, even as a contrarian under the radar play. I think there are just, better options out there than me.
All right, good stuff, you two. Feel free to take a breather because we got golf on the way.
It's a Friday in the association, 7 NBA games tonight, and we're here to identify some players you should avoid. Brendan Glasheen here for Levitan's Fadeaway with Adam Levitan. Bradley Beal. Levy is the most expensive shooting guard on the slate, $8,700 at the Celtics in Boston. Why are you fading Beal?
Yeah, Bradley Beal has obviously had a huge role since John Wall went down. This is a spot, though, against a Boston team on the road, a Celtics team which has lost 4 straight. I just don't like this spot in general, and we could argue that Bradley Beal is more appropriately priced than underpriced at this point. So I don't expect the Wizards to play well. I expect the Celtics to focus their defense on Bradley Beal, and that spells trouble.
Bulls forward Lauri Markkanen, 8,600, 6th on the slate at the Hawks. We've discussed him before. Remind us why this salary on this player is frightening.
Yeah, it's a lot to pay for Lauri Markkanen with Otto Porter and Chris Dunn back. You know, he's still up at 8,600. I think with those guys back, Markkanen is still a good play at 7,800, 7,600, somewhere in there. But we have to be really price sensitive in NBA, and even against the Hawks, and I know that's one of the best possible matchups. I think 8,600 is really hard to find a ceiling on for Markkanen.
Last one, Kyle Lowry, 7,200 as he duels with Damian Lillard in the 6. Blazers at Lowry and the Raptors. Reasons to fade Kyle Lowry.
There's just so many bad defenses on this slate. Phoenix, Atlanta, Washington, New Orleans, the Lakers, the Bulls. This list goes on. I don't see much of a reason to pick on Portland, and that's particularly true with the Raptors healthy and with Lowry really taking on more of a distributor role than an aggressive offensive role when Kawhi Leonard plays. So I think Lowry we can do much better on this slate where we're going to need a ton of points to get to the top of tournaments.
That's Levitan's fadeaway, folks. Levy, thanks a lot.
All right, good luck.
Thank you, Glash and Levitan. PGA Tour has officially begun, everybody. It's the Florida Swing with the Honda Classic currently underway. An update on the first 2 rounds, and it's coming, a lot of that information for you. We're going to bring in the bad boys of golf, DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler. Yeah, even they're shaking their heads.
Oh, yeah, bad boys of golf. Let's go. Okay, Reed.
I'm definitely Will Smith, though, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
there's a Martin
come
Lawrence
on.
element to Jeff.
Come
I'm
on.
going to bed at 9 tonight. That's how bad I am.
Yeah.
Pat Mayo's so upset he
Bad
wasn't
to
included.
the bone. Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, let's take a look at this. Reed, after what you saw in the first 2 rounds, who were you the most right about in your predictions throughout the week? Please be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Brooks was a clear-cut favorite. Like, his stats didn't jump off the page because he only played at WGC Mexico and, at the Tournament Champions. So you didn't look at his past 24, 36, however many rounds you're looking back at, whether it was short or long term. He was just a clear-cut favorite. I mean, this tournament was the first real casualty of that schedule change. And with Ricky and JT playing a lot on the West Coast swing, he was a guy that was coming in potentially under-owned. I mean, he was about 11 to 12%. We'll talk about ownership a little bit later, but Brooks Koepka is someone that was, in terms of how he plays on difficult courses. This course played as the second most difficult last season, only second to the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills. And we're seeing that kind of this round or this weekend or coming into this weekend already. I mean, the wind's not as bad as it usually is. And these guys are still, bogeying 3 of the last 4 holes. 10 through 12 is becoming a hard stretch of holes, not just bear traps. So Brooks Koepka is a guy that obviously with 2 U.S. Open wins under his belt was someone that you could easily hang your hat on and saying he was the best option out there this week.
Jeffrey, who were you the most right about?
I mean, to take this with a grain of salt, because look, this tournament, some guys can go and shoot 79 tomorrow if the winds get up. Obviously, it's a tough course. But I mean, I was probably more right in assessing the fact that Adam Scott was just a little bit overpriced this week at 10-3. Not really a player I want to pay that much for, and he kind of came through for me and missed the cut, so that was nice. I like Daniel Berger, going to Daniel Berger over some of the other players in his range. He came through with a solid round today, so that worked out. And then the player that's probably the most interesting that I was right about was Charles Schwartzel. -3 for the tournament, but I mean, his ownership is like 3% owned. So I mean, if you use Charles Schwartzel, you could potentially in a huge spot for GPPs there.
Gentlemen, I prefer a little bit of more humility here. I want to know the other side of the spectrum, Jeff. I mean, who were you most wrong about so far?
I mean, I think I came on the show Wednesday and said, Lucas Glover was just far too overpriced. I think he's sitting in solo second right now. Yeah, solo third. So close. But I mean, look, these conditions are perfect for Lucas Glover when he's ball striking like this. He likes to load the higher scoring events where you can like basically win with like -9. If he keeps up this ball striking, he's gonna have a good shot over the weekend. Definitely a player I was wrong about. I didn't want to pay 800 for him. I thought he was overpriced, but with the form he's in, he's definitely proving me wrong. And anyone else out there I can see? I don't know. I didn't really use any of these scrubs who missed the cut. I guess it was a pretty good week for me, Kaufman.
Wow.
Okay, if you say so. Reed, how about you? Who have you been wrong about?
Yeah, I love when Jeff's, he has his humility where he wears it on his sleeve. I like that. I appreciate
really
that.
owns it.
I can tell us the one guy that we were both wrong on was Alex Noren. I mean, I saw Jeff tweet out that Alex Noren was someone that we were high on. I was high on as well. I mean, you look at where he finished last year at this tournament, and he didn't falter down the stretch. He finished, top 3, and this guy was routinely in the 9,000 to 10,000 range last season, and we've seen his talent. He was in the top 10. So you look at just where he was and then just the strength of this field, you're like, okay, well, maybe he finds some sort of memory going back from last year to this year. Absolutely not. I mean, this guy is clearly, he's got something wrong. Maybe he has an injury that he's not telling us about. PGA is one of those professional tourists that they don't have to tell us what their injuries are, like football on Wednesdays. And so if he's battling a wrist injury, a back injury, whatever it may be, he's just not, his putting, his approach, everything is not going right for him. He's like at +8 or whatever it is. He's at +7 after Thursday's round. So he's a guy that I was 100% wrong on, because look, clearly he has the talent. At 9,000, you thought, okay, maybe you could, switch off of him and some of the other high-priced guys, but he's terrible.
I know you're both huge Sung Jae Im fans, so, I mean, way to go.
Now,
good pronunciation there.
Thank you.
Reed, you started to touch on it earlier, but were you surprised by anybody's ownership levels?
Not so much surprised. I mean, a lot of the projected ownerships that we saw, like Ricky, Brooks, obviously JT, these guys got the biggest bump. I mean, the Graham McDowells, and this is sort of a testament to the entire season so far that we've seen. The Graham McDowells, Jim Furyk, these guys had, double-digit ownerships coming into this week, and that kind of ran true. And we see these type of older players, Vijay Singh, Ernie Els, and Ernie Els kind of faltered down the stretch today. But these guys are coming in with good form. They had double-digit ownership. I mean, Brooks still came in at around 11%. I thought he might have been a little bit higher. But guys went to JT, guys went to Ricky like they usually do. And Webb Simpson. I mean, Webb Simpson is someone that we've currently see, his putting kind of going back to where we saw it before last year. And he's someone that garnered a lot of ownership. So the guys like Graham McDowell, like Charles Howell III is someone like this year, right, that we've seen a lot of ownership. Maybe not necessarily like the old guys, but a guy who's been on tour for a long time. These older guys are doing a lot better. So that's the only thing that, especially for this tournament where you don't have a lot of good guys, and stars and scrubs lineup was the preferred strategy. Those are the guys that you don't routinely see week over week get the ownership that they do this week. So, but all the other guys came in pretty equal to their projected ownership.
Jeff, whose ownership surprised you?
I mean, Scott Piercy and Adam Scott. Again, it's especially with Adam Scott, you don't have to pay that much up to get to Brooks Koepka. And I know he was still, Brooks was still like 13% owned in some tournaments, which is decent. But, whenever you have that close between Scott and Brooks, I mean, Brooks should always be higher owned. So I was a little surprised that wasn't more even. Scott Piercy, again, another player. People just seem to ignore everyone else in that range and just either go to Piercy or Michael Thompson. There's some really good players in that range, Matt Wallace, Charles Schwartzel, and everyone just seemed to conglomerate. So the ownership on Piercy threw me off a little bit. I was a little bit surprised he was that high. Just checking if there's anyone else here I want to mention. But no, that's pretty much it. I mean, Reed kind of hit on it. It did seem like a bit of an easier week for projections. Yeah, Jim Furyk's ownership actually surprised me. I thought he was going to be lower owned, but he was like cracking 10% in a lot of lineups. So I guess people were onto that. He's been playing better. Really good setup at only 7K for this event.
Projected cut line right now is 2 over. It's moved back just a little bit, had been 1 over for a good chunk of the day. So that, if it stays where it is, lets another 17 guys in that you can consider for this next question, Jeff. What's your lineup strategy the rest of the weekend?
I mean, you're going to want to really look at ball striking this week. This course is only going to get tougher over the weekend. It always does. The greens get a little bit faster. The sun keeps beating down. The winds are going to pick up a little bit too. So guys who are striking it well, like I'm looking at a guy like Sergio Garcia, who's had his irons going for pretty much. He fell off a little bit at the end, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think he's going to have a good weekend, solid weekend. I mean, he's in a good spot. He's -3. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my strategy. Looking at guys who are top in strokes gain approach here, emphasizing it more than normal too, because again, this is only going to get worse. And if guys start, just getting off a little bit with their irons here, it's really going to get magnified over the weekend. So I'm looking at Sergio Garcia. If you want a few names, I like the way Daniel Berger played today. I think he's low owned in the main slate. I think he's probably going to be low owned on the weekend slate. And that's pretty much it for me right now.
We've heard from the meteorologist. How about you, Reed?
I'm just going to dovetail off of what Jeff was saying, because he's exactly right. I mean, it seems like a pretty simple equation, right? Get guys who hit the fairway and hit the greens. And that's, if it was that easy to play golf, all of us would be doing it. But he's right. And staying away from the guys too, like the Johnny Vegases. You look at this tournament, at this course specifically, Not one player who led at the beginning of the tournament on Thursday has gone on to win. And then this tournament specifically, only 7 of the first-round leaders of the last 46 years have gone on to win. So staying away from those guys. Zach Johnson is someone that we've seen do well, right, in majors in these tougher fields. It's a shorter course. It's 7,100 yards. Zach Johnson's strokes gain approach is up there. Just his putting has been atrocious. And so that's what you want to do. Get guys that can switch that putting from day to day as opposed to those irons. Because if they're not, we've seen it, plus 90 holes 10 through 12. I mean, some of the longest par fours that you'll see on tour. And then the bear trap, you want guys that can save par. And Zach Johnson fits that mold. So he's one of the guys that I'm looking at.
I'll say this too. If you're playing like 1-round showdown lineups, there's an MDF cut tomorrow, but target the early. Don't be afraid to target early tee times because it will be less windy. And that played it. You saw it today. It's a little bit easier for the morning wave, and it'll play a factor on the weekend too.
Okay, real quick time, you guys. You know what it is. Slate approved pick. Who's it going to be, Reed?
Yeah, I like Sergio. I like that pick from Jeff. I think 3 of the last 4 holes he bogeyed, so I think he's in a good spot.
Retweet, Jeff.
No, I'll take Daniel Berger. I like him, and I'll also throw out the name Freddie Jakobsen as a shock winner.
Ooh.
Over the weekend.
All right. Well,
We love that.
See how that plays out.
We have it on
Count a
tape.
Bold strategy. All right.
He's from Sweden.
Great.
Wow.
Good stuff, guys. Reed, you'll be back later in the show to talk a little football with Steve. Jeff, you're going to play NHL opening face-off with us in the next segment. We just want to let you know what you're doing so you're not caught off guard, and also program all of our viewers to stay with us as well. So, I mean, stay exactly where you are.
Don't let him move.
Don't move. Not an inch.
Before we get to all that, Adam, you had yourself a little Francesa Friday, didn't you?
It's the best part of the
Yeah,
week.
let's take a listen.
All right. Everyone's favorite day of the week. It's a Francesa Friday. Mike Francesa, WFAN in New York, host of Mike's On. And Mike, all right, you got to jump into baseball, especially with spring training underway. But the big story, Bryce Harper finally has a home. The NL MVP favorite, 13 years, $330 million from the Phillies. No opt-outs. No trade clause, both sides clearly committed to this marriage, Mike. I think it's a horrible mistake on both sides.
Well, first of all, it was no secret he didn't want to play for the Phillies. He could have had this deal a long time ago. Secondly, they couldn't find the deal elsewhere, and they wanted to have a deal that made him, the guy who got the most net money. That was the most gross money. That was the most important thing. It's a deal. I agree with you that I don't like from either side. I agree with that premise. It was almost a save face thing on the Harper side. On the Philly side, it's not a bad, yearly pay. And I know what their premise is. In 13 years, $25 million a year is probably going to be something that doesn't even raise an eyebrow because the salaries always go up. If you went back 13 years and did the average pay of an NL star, it probably will have gone up over 10 years or 13 years, 50 or 60%. So the money's
he's also going to be pushing 40.
It's not going to be the aggregate. The money per year is not going to kill them, but 13-year commitment is ridiculous.
How much less does Bryce make than you now?
He's got me by a couple of bucks, I'd say.
Listen, I know Harper's a talented player, and Manny Machado is too. He got a decade from the Padres. It's ridiculous, though, Mike. The teams are willing to hand out that kind of length. I know baseball's different, and there's no cap, and teams can do whatever they want to do. But I feel like as a fan, never mind covering sports, I feel like term length should be capped, like we see in basketball and hockey.
Well, listen, you can't protect the owners from themselves. They think they needed a drawing card. They're going to tell you how many tickets they sold. I don't even believe that. The bottom line is he is not the best player. He is a star. He is a much bigger star than he is an impact player. Mm-hmm. He's not a big impact player. Look at his WAR. If you go by analytics, he's the 82nd ranked player. I mean, the guy doesn't have that kind of impact. He's only had one great year. It was a save-face deal on his side. And on the Philly side, like you said, the last 5 or 6 years of that contract are going to be worthless. We know that, but they're going to figure, listen, we got a guy on the cheap aggregate, by year for the first 7 or 8 years, and then we'll pay through the nose in the last 6 or 7 years. And that's the way that contract's going to work. They're not going to feel the pain for about 5 or 6 years. And I guess the GM's figuring, you know what? I'm not even going to be here when that contract comes to start to hurt us. So I'll let them worry about it. It's almost like us with the national debt. Hey, we push it off to the next generation. Let them worry about it. I think that's a contract where the people making the decisions said, you know what, we'll let the next guys worry about it.
Well, to your point, and to Philly's credit, that average annual value, it's lower than most people expected. There were people talking about $35 million a year, and it's 10 less than that. So, yeah, and that would have been nuts. Here's maybe a wrinkle, and you've been kind of on this horse a little bit in the past. Does this, with that lower AAV, set the Phillies up to land Mike Trout when he's available?
I think what allows them is twofold to land. First of all, they would do anything to land Mike Trout. They would not. They break the bank to add Mike Trout. The other thing is, I could see an exchange of players here. I could see the Angels have always liked having stars. I could see a situation where, and I understand that Harper has a no trade, but I think Harper would accept the trade to the West Coast and playing for the Angels. I could see a situation where that actually gives them another chance, another way to get Trout, where they could swap Harper in a package for Trout. I could see that being something that could happen down the road.
That's an interesting wrinkle. I hadn't thought of that, but entirely possible. But no Harper, no Machado, two guys you and I, we've spent a lot of time this offseason talking about. Was it a bad offseason for the Yankees considering they didn't land either?
No, good offseason. And not only that, it showed me something I didn't think they had.
Restraint?
Restraint.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought once the Red Sox won the World Series, the Yankees would go on a buying spree. I really did. I thought that would be their reaction. Hey, we won 100 games and we still didn't win, and now the Red Sox are better than we are. So I thought they would go on a buying spree. Listen, I think they kicked around the Machado one. Harper didn't fit. The problem with Harper was they didn't have anywhere to play him. They don't like him in center. They have Judge, who's a better player than Harper in right. They're going to have to pay Judge anyway, so they got off the Harper bandwagon early. You know, Cashman's a big Hicks guy, so that got him off the Harper bandwagon early. And I think the Machado one, they had to be pushed off it a little bit. I think they were by his demand. So the bottom line was it turned out to be, I think, a very fortunate offseason for the Yankees. I'm very surprised and happy with their restraint.
How about just on the Harper deal, crossing sports? Does that make Kyler Murray think maybe he made the wrong decision focusing on football, seeing what kind of money he's potentially giving up in baseball?
No, you see, I think that baseball isn't a given. Quarterback money is a given. So the bottom line is, I think that's the difference. I think although he got $4 million to sign, there's no given or any magic method that proves that he's going to be a star baseball player. You just don't know. You never know if a guy's going to be from the minors to the majors a star baseball player. We've seen many guys who clobber it in the minors fail in the majors. So you just don't know in baseball. You don't know if guys are going to hit in the major leagues till they get to the major leagues, no matter who they are. You really don't. I've seen too many guys fail. So, but he's more of a sure thing as far as an impact, especially if he knows he's got someone who loves him. And I think he knows that he has someone who loves him who's waiting for him in that draft.
Mike Francesa, talk to you again on Monday. Time to put this show on ice. From golf to hockey, DK Live's Jeff Ulrich can do it all. At least that's what he wants you to believe.
Oh, shoot. There he is.
Magic.
Hockey Jeff is here. Wow. I know.
Wow, sorry. All right.
Did you change your shirt at least?
Yeah. Just his mindset. All right, we brought you here to help us choose between the top options at each position, a.k.a. NHL opening faceoff. So the two most expensive centers are Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon. Crosby $7,600 against the Sabres. MacKinnon $100 less against the Sharks. Who do you think is going to have the better game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, both these guys are in pretty good form right now. I mean, McKinnon's had a couple big games sparsed in between a couple bad ones. I have to side with Sidney Crosby here, though. I mean, there's upside in the Colorado San Jose Sharks matchup for sure. I mean, it does have the biggest puck total on the slate, but you look at Crosby going up against the Sabres, and they're road favorites. I mean, they're missing a few defensemen. Chris Letang is out, but I don't necessarily think it hurts Crosby's production that much. I mean, it's probably just more prone for the Penguins to get in shootouts. And again, they're going up against the Sabres. This is the team that's allowed 4 more goals in 5 of the last 7 starts. McKinnon going up against the Sharks. Yeah, Martin Jones is a goalie who could allow a bad game, have a bad game essentially. But I think that's more or less likely to happen. I just like the spot for Crosby, and I'd rather pay up a little bit more for him.
Doing the thing at wing, Jeff, we've got Alex Ovechkin, 7,800 against the Islanders. Then there is Vladimir Tarasenko. He's 7,300 versus the Hurricanes, so just a little bit of a savings. Would Ovi be worth the extra 500, do you think?
Yeah, I think he is. I'm actually a little bit interested in. I think this is actually a good spot, especially for GPPs to pay up for Alex Ovechkin, because I don't think many people are going to do it going up against the Islanders. Islanders traditionally a pretty good defensive team. They certainly have been all year, first in goals against, but they're coming off a really emotional victory against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we kind of saw how that affected the Leafs. The Leafs had this big win at home against Connor McDavid, and then they just floundered the next night. It's kind of the same spot for the Islanders. And you got Ovechkin coming in here now. It kind of feels like the odds makers might be onto this too. So the game is basically set as a pick'em right now, but the Capitals are the road team. So I think that's really interesting. I think Ovechkin in the spot, who's just been solid pretty much the whole year. He's definitely been solid in those last 10 games. Nothing to fear there. I think it's a good spot to pay up for him because I think he's going to be under-owned. And like I said, Islanders could be in a letdown spot for sure.
All right, Brent Burns is the most expensive defenseman at $7,000 against the Avalanche. Then there's John Carlson, who's 6,300 against the Islanders. Who's the better play tonight? I mean, Burns is like racking up goals and assists left and right.
It's pretty good.
He is. He's on fire because he's Brent Burns, right? No, but in all seriousness, I love Brent Burns tonight, and I don't hate the Capitals. Like if you want to stack Ovechkin and Carlson and go for the big Capital stack, I think there's that's okay. But again, you look at the teams they're going up against. The Avalanche have the sixth worst penalty kill in the league, and it just sets up as a really, really good spot for Brent Burns. I mentioned the Sharks are favorites at home. This has a really good implied puck total for both teams. And Burns has been really solid over his last 10 games. He had a slow start to the season, but he's got 13 points over his last 10 games. 6 of his 13 goals on the season have come on the power play. So you get an opponent like the Avalanche, and this is kind of like a pretty big showdown for the Western Conference, two really solid Western Conference teams. I think it's a spot where you really try and pay up for Brent Burns tonight, and especially if it's going to come down to Carlson, I'm going to take Brent Burns here pretty much 10 times out of 10.
Let's look at some of the pricier goalies tonight, Jeff. Cam Talbot, 7,800 against the Devils. Carey Price, right behind him, 7,700 versus the Rangers. So who do you like more?
Yeah, this one is really close. I like both these guys. I think these are both goalies you should have on your radar tonight. And it is one of those nights, too, where there's no clear-cut, like, big favorite in goal. So it's not easy. You can't just pay up for this, massive favorite. Both Talbot and Carey Price are small favorites, but they're both small road favorites. So I think if I'm going to pick between them, I'm going to take Carey Price. He's just a little bit better goalie, and I just think there's less questions. Talbot's going to be making his first start as the Philadelphia Flyer tonight, which is nice for narrative purposes, but don't forget, he was terrible for the Oilers all year. So you don't really know what you're going to get tonight. The Devils aren't really a great offensive team. They got tons of injuries, but I think he makes for more of a GPP play. I think Carey Price going up against the Rangers, the Canadians have been playing a lot better lately. Price has been solid. I'll take Price over here, but I do like both these goalies on a kind of it's a tough, like I said, it's just a tough slate to pick a goalie. I think both these guys offer good value.
All right, finally, Jeff, it's slate approved pick time. So who's your lock of the night?
I really like the Sharks tonight. I'm going to make my slate approved pick Brent Burns. Like I said, I think you just pay up for him. There's other value defensemen you can use to pair along with him. Justin Schultz, Marcus Peterson on the Penguins. And I'll throw out another San Jose Shark too, Gustav Nyquist. I like the spot that third line is in for the Sharks tonight. So LeBlanc, Thornton, Gustav Nyquist. Good value.
Jeff, excellent work as sometimes. You are free to go. And, as for us, we're going to bring Julian and Matt back for their picks for tonight's Basketball Brotherhood contest. It's next.
Get ready to set your sights on DraftKings' free-to-play Basketball Brotherhood contest. It is presented by Netflix's Triple Frontier, which stars Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal, available on March 13th. Now to play, you got to form your own Brotherhood here, consisting of 5 players who can hit from deep. Why? Because only 3-pointers matter. That's it. Nothing else. Just threes. So take your best shot with 5 players from the main slate while staying under the $50,000 salary cap. Now, the more triples that fall, the more points for your Brotherhood. It's just that simple. Basketball Brotherhood contest run throughout March, so step back behind the arc, make it rain for a chance to win cash prizes, all courtesy of Triple Frontier, available on Netflix March 13th.
Back to the hardwood with DK Live's Julian Edlow and Action Matt LaMarca from the Action Network. Guys, we're focused on your Basketball Brotherhood contest picks. This contest is presented by Triple Frontier on Netflix, which is going to be available to binge watch on March 13th.
Pretty soon. In this contest, your roster is made up of 5 players. You only accumulate points for made 3-pointers. Okay, it's a nifty caveat. So, Matt, what's your strategy?
My strategy is to pick the guys that make the most 3-pointers.
Yes, that's how you
don't
win.
say.
That's how you
How
do
did
it.
you figure that out?
Who are those guys, pal?
Yeah, I mean, being a little more serious, I want to target guys with volume upside more than efficiency upside. I want the guys who, can have a night where they're going to shoot 10 3-pointers. Like, that's more important to me than grabbing the guys who shoot 40+% from 3. Is you want the guys with more potential to make more baskets if they get hot. That's how you're going to win this thing, is by picking the guys who are going to attempt the most threes. I would imagine that, the person who ultimately wins this thing is right up there in terms of, most 3-pointers attempted as well as most 3-pointers.
I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good strategy, I think. Julian?
Yeah, I mean, Matt's got pretty much the right idea here. There's only one thing we're looking for, and you don't lose any points from missing threes, so let's get as many up there as we can and see how many go in. The only thing I'll add is, I guess, if somebody's, been really spectacular, like a Joe Harris, who won the 3-point shootout in Charlotte over the All-Star break, he's shot 10 for 15 from downtown since the break, so he hasn't gotten as many up as you would maybe like, but he's been knocking so many down. He almost shoots 50% from downtown. He does have the 4, 5, 6 3-pointers made upside. He just doesn't necessarily attempt quite as many every night. So if you're going to go with somebody who doesn't necessarily play 35 minutes and shoot 8, 9 3-pointers, make sure it's somebody that's going to be, really sharp and knock a lot down for you out of the ones that he takes at least.
Okay, so when you're looking at players, thinking about the strategy here, Julian, who do you think the most overpriced player is?
Yeah, I mean, this is tough. Nobody really jumps out as, wow, I can't believe they're priced that high. I thought Danilo Gallinari at 11,300 was a little bit high. He obviously is a good shooter. He's playing against the Kings in which should be a fast-paced game. So, look, Gallinari could be fine, but he also, if you go through his game log the last 5 or 6 games, he's got a couple of games where he shot 1 for 7 from downtown. He's got an 0 for 3 game. He's coming off an 0 for 6 game. I just think he's a guy that if you're going to spend, over $11,000, you want to be sure you're going to get something there, and he's got the chance to go 0 for, which you really can't afford at that price tag.
All right, Matt, most overpriced player.
I think it's Buddy Hield all the way at the top. Buddy Hield is an absolute dead-eye sharpshooter. He's kind of like Joe Harris in that regard. And he can shoot, 7, 8 threes in a game. So I get why he's the most expensive price player on the slate. I just don't think he has the most upside. I would much rather roster Kemba Walker at a cheaper price, who literally has the potential to hoist 15 3-pointers tonight. I just think that the upside with some of these other guys is so much greater than it is with Hield that I'm willing to sacrifice some efficiency. Even though he's made the most per game of all the guys on this slate, I just think that him being the most expensive player is not correct for the format.
Matty, we'll stay with you. How about most underpriced option?
Yeah, this one was pretty easy for me. It's Trae Young. If you look at what he did during the month of February, he averaged close to 8 3-pointers per game and made them at roughly a 44% clip. So it was by far his best month in the NBA, and just the combination of volume and efficiency that he provides is so much better than anybody else you're going to find in that price range, especially with John Collins out of the lineup tonight. I'm really expecting Trae Young to be the focal point of that Atlanta offense, which he's been recently, and that likely means a lot of 3-pointers.
Jules, you have an alternative?
Yeah, I mean, Trae Young is definitely a guy that I was going to mention here. He shot 8 for 12 a couple of games ago from downtown, so he makes his shots. He's not afraid to let them go. I like Trae Young a lot on this slate. Just to give you an alternative and somebody maybe even cheaper, Lou Williams at $6,600. He doesn't have quite the volume that you would like to see. He's made between 1 and 3 3-pointers in each of his last 8 games. He did shoot 5 for 6 about 9 games ago back in his game log, so he does have that upside there. He's just a good volume scorer, and he's a guy that we know can get hot from downtown. So if you're going to reach on somebody this cheap, obviously you're spending $10,000 per player, go all the way down to $6,600 for a guy that on the right night, and he has a good matchup in terms of pace against the Sacramento Kings, can knock down 5, 6, 7 3-pointers for you.
It's a good call.
Oh, okay. We got a vote of agreement from Matt. Yeah, there you go. All right. Slate-approved pick time. Julian, who's it going to be?
Yeah, Kemba Walker is to this slate as steamed broccoli is to Adam Kaufman. Nice. I just absolutely have to have it. I can't do without it. Kemba Walker, like Matt said off the top, he shoots like 10 to 15 threes a game. He knocked down 6 the last time he played Brooklyn. Give me Kemba Walker, absolutely.
I'm a little embarrassed to say it, Julian, but I love it.
Matt, who's your steamed broccoli?
Oh, that would be a fade. I'm not a steamed broccoli guy.
It's good for you, buddy.
Give me Kemba Walker as well. Give me Kemba as well. I hate to echo the same thoughts as Julian, but it's just too easy of a play. Like, there's no one on this. I would bet pretty good money that no one on the slate attempts more 3-pointers than him tonight.
Hang tight, fellas. We'll chat with you one more time in just a little while. For now, we're heading to the gridiron after a quick word from our sponsors.
This isn't a sponsor.
Never mind.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash, Tevin Coleman's future with the Falcons is unclear. The team's general manager, Thomas Dimitroff, said Wednesday at the NFL Scouting Combine, Tevin's going to do well wherever he is. Not exactly a great endorsement to sign the running back. Atlanta is already committed to paying Devonta Freeman through 2022, and he ain't cheap, as Freeman makes the 3rd most dollars in the NFL per season behind Todd Gurley and David Johnson. Coleman logged several career bests in 2018, rushing attempts and yards, plus receiving targets, receptions, and touchdowns. In 11 of 16 games, the former 3rd-round pick logged double-digit DraftKings points. His services will be desired, as ESPN Falcons reporter Vaughn McClure says to not be surprised if the San Francisco 49ers express serious interest in Coleman despite signing Jerick McKinnon last offseason. McClure also reports word around the combine is Coleman won't be back with the Falcons. Coleman officially a free agent on March 13th.
We are back with DK Live, Steve Buchanan and Reed Fowler for the NFL Spin move.
Whoa, Reed.
We're just going to need a second.
Yeah, Reed.
Spin move.
Come on, guy, come closer.
Okay, guys.
Let's see you bigger in the frame.
Come on to us now for a second while I talk. Yeah, so Redskins head coach Jay Gruden says he has total confidence in Colt McCoy.
And I love working Friday nights.
Yeah, fair. But Steve, if you were in Washington, would you trust McCoy as your starter next year?
Well, first of all, I got to figure out where Brendan Glasheen got all that money that he's sponsoring the Sweat now. Like, congratulations on that big accomplishment.
Yeah, it must have been his football winnings.
Yeah.
Yeah, calm down. Look at Colt McCoy. Yeah, look, Gruden's already waving the white flag for the 2019 season. This team is going to be really, really bad. I mean, look, they have the 15th pick in the draft coming up there. Maybe they can grab Daniel Jones at quarterback there. I mean, obviously they're not in play for Nick Foles, but I mean, I've mentioned so many times how poor the free agents are at quarterback this offseason. I mean, honestly, if you're thinking about using Colt McCoy, just go grab Tyrod Taylor. I mean, why not at this point? You know you're going absolutely nowhere this season. Take a shot on Tyrod Taylor. I mean, McCoy is not the answer. He hasn't been anybody's top option since 2011. I don't know how, 8 years later he's going to be the guy for the Redskins, but man, it's going to be a long season for those guys.
Reed, we know Washington has really just struggled at the quarterback position. So, McCoy, would you trust him as the starter?
I mean, no. He has to say this, right? Like, the Redskins have to say this. Gruden has to say this. And if you're the only people that have faith in McCoy is his family, and no disrespect to that, but he's not.
No, quarterback only a mother could love.
That is disrespectful.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so Steve's right. I mean, if you're looking at this as a Redskins from the perspective, why not get a guy like Teddy Bridgewater? Why not get a guy like Tyrod? Get one of these guys that at least garners some faith in your fan base. Because, like I said, McCoy only, like Washington, 28th in yards per play, 29th in yards per pass attempt. I mean, almost dead last in offense per DVOA. And so what is Colt McCoy going to do to move that needle? Absolutely nothing. And Darius Geis, although it's a good story and potentially has some upside. Oh, he feels really close.
Feels,
upside.
Feels really strongly about this.
There's no way he's going to garner any sort of trust. So I mean, I'm with Steve here. Like, there's no way Colt McCoy garners any sort of trust other than a backup quarterback.
Boy, Colt McCoy must be messing with our cameras after you insulted him.
Yeah,
he felt that.
No disrespect, but only his family loves him.
Yeah.
All right, Golden Tate, guys, was on the Pro Style podcast. Reed, I think we could stay with you here. Said he'd love to play for my beloved Patriots. Is Tate the receiver the Pats need to go get this offseason?
Yeah, I'm sure he mentioned Adam Kaufman's New England Patriots.
Have you listened? Have you listened?
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't listen to you, never.
No, that's not what I said.
Look, Julian Edelman, right, is the obvious comparison is, well, he plays the same position as Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman, right, 33, obviously, a great receiver, but how much time does he have left? And with Hogan and Dorsett and some of these Patterson, all of the receivers not really garnering any sort of trust to potentially sign back with the Patriots, I think you really have to look at it. Does he have to be there? Is it a perfect fit? I don't think so. Like, I really think that a guy like Golden Tate, it's nice to think, right, the Patriots is a great fit for him, but I honestly like a Dante Moncrief a lot better for the Patriots. I like some of these other guys who aren't going to cost as much as Golden Tate. Tate already has a Super Bowl. He's not chasing necessarily after that first Super Bowl. So if he wants money, if that's the case, then I don't think the Patriots should go after him because they're going to have to pay quite a bit, and that's just not their style. So I'd rather see a guy like Moncrief there, even Tyrell Williams. I mean, that's what they need. They need that possession receiver, or excuse me, that long distance receiver as opposed to possession guy like a Julian Edelman. So I don't think it's a great fit. Obviously, Golden Tate is probably the best wide receiver free agent out there, but not for me.
Well, first Colt McCoy, then me. Steve, he's just disrespecting everybody. What do you think of Tate on the Pats?
Yeah, he goes across the country and he loses all respect for everything surrounding him. So
unbelievable.
I mean, look, the Patriots are likely going to lose Chris Hogan. This has already drawn a lot of interest for him. Philip Dorsett, Cordell Patterson, also free agents this year. So if any of those guys are probably going to come back, it'd probably be Dorsett. You know, he should have been the Super Bowl MVP, but he didn't do anything, whatever. So, I mean, look, they're going to need receivers, all right? I mean, the Eagles underutilized Tate so much when they made that trade. Like, it makes you wonder why they even made that trade to begin with. And, like Reed said, Edelman is their primary slot receiver, and that's where Tate prefers to play as well. But I still think it's a shot worth taking him. There's just nobody on that free agent market that really fits with the Patriots, or really anybody you'd want to take. Because if you look at his numbers before he got traded to the Eagles, he averaged just under 12 yards per catch with the Lions, 44 receptions, 3 of his 4 touchdowns. I mean, this is a guy that can still produce. He just got lost in the shuffle with the Eagles. Like I said, I don't understand what the point of the trade was for the way that they used him. So I think he'd be a great fit with the Patriots, and I think that's definitely somebody they should go after. They're going to need receivers going into next season.
I will say this before we move on to the next one. I mean, Adam Humphries, doesn't that guy sound like someone that would fit perfectly with the Patriots? I mean, and then you look at Kansas City, too, for Tate. I mean, when you look at that offense, I mean, if one of those big three go down, they're going to need someone to pick that up. And obviously with Damian Williams as their quote-unquote starter, they're going to need someone else on offense if, for whatever reason, Kelsey goes down. But Adam Humphries, to me, is someone that I could see definitely in a Patriots uniform.
You said Adam Humphries, and ever since, Steve has looked like someone who smelled a dirty diaper.
Yeah, he's not pleased.
Oh, he's thinking about Matt LaMarca.
Oh, shoot.
I'm just kidding. LaMarca. There he is.
I can't believe it.
Wow.
The disrespect continues.
Wow. Oh my God.
He was just chilling. I have to give him a shout out.
It was a joke, guys.
It was
It was
LaMarca,
a joke.
not happy.
Okay.
I got a new haircut and I feel all good. So
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You're just playing it fast and loose. All right,
Yeah,
Devin Funchess.
Gets ready for the weekend.
Devin Funchess is a free agent, guys, and he already knows he's going to be wearing a new jersey next season since he called himself a former Panther on Twitter today in a video that was a little bit rantish. So will Funchess be better elsewhere, Steve?
I mean, look, someone's going to end up overpaying for Funchess, whether they want to or not. Like I just alluded to, the free agents for wide receivers this year is brutal. I mean, Funchess is one of the top picks out of everybody on there, and that's not really saying much. I mean, realistically, he was probably the number one option with the Panthers. On another team, he's a fringe 2 or 3, I feel like. He started off the year really well, but he just dropped off dramatically. And granted, that could have been something to do with Cam Newton and how he's throwing and his shoulder. So I'll give him a pass on that. Look, he's still 20. He's going to be 25 when the season starts, but man, he just did not look good. He dropped 6 passes on the year. Just really, he was held catchless 2 games at the end of the year. Just did not look good at all. But like I said, somebody's going to overpay for him because there's just nobody to choose from. If Tate goes first, it's kind of fun just who's left that people are going to be craving for. So, I mean, I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know where he really fits. He's going to have a lot better of the year. I mean, to be a free agent coming off the year he just had, it's pretty brutal, but he lucked out with this free agent class.
So, Reed, somebody's going to pay up for him and pay more than they should, perhaps. But do you think he'll actually be better somewhere else?
I mean, well, first off, I'm really scared what Lamarck is going to say about me in the next segment.
Yeah, you should be.
But second of all, look, like Steve's right. Devin Funchess is a guy that, you know, when you look at him, big frame, you know, he coming out of Michigan, he was a guy that a lot of us thought that he was going to be, you know, a really good fit, especially with Cam Newton. I think that's where you want to see him. Like, the going rate for a guy like him is about $8 million a year over the next 3 or 4 years. And Steve's right. Like, that is something that is, you know, pretty high price for a guy who just drops a ton of balls, right? So I could see him in Baltimore. Obviously, with losing Crabtree, they're going to need someone there. And Lamar Jackson, because of his accuracy not being that great, a big body receiver could be someone that they could go after. And the Steelers could be a potential, like, you know, dark horse if they need someone else where he doesn't have to be the number 1 option. He can be, like Steve was mentioning, the number 3 option in that offense and be perfectly fine getting 5 targets for, you know, 30 or 40 yards. And so Baltimore, I think, is a good fit for him where if he's not the prime option on offense.
All right, nice work, guys. Well, Reed, you were kind of a jerk. But for the most part, nice work. You're all done. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, and see what Matt says about you on the next segment.
Yeah.
Back to the links when we return.
Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Ottawa Senators have essentially been having a year-long fire sale as they've shipped multiple star players out of town. Now they've also sent their coach packing as Guy Boucher has been fired in his 3rd year behind the Ottawa bench. Tough to blame Boucher for Ottawa's struggles this season. The roster has been gutted over the last year with elite players like Erik Karlsson, Matt Duchene, and most recently Mark Stone being traded away in the midst of a rebuild. All of these moves have led to a 22-37-5 record for the Senators this season, the worst in the NHL. The only surprise here is that Boucher was fired just 1 day after Ottawa GM Pierre Dorion said that a decision on the coaching staff wouldn't come until after the end of the season. Apparently losing their 6th consecutive game on Thursday night to Edmonton was the straw that broke the camel's back. For Boucher, it was all downhill from his first season. Took Ottawa to the conference finals in year 1, missed the playoffs in year 2, and is now fired in year number 3. Mark Crawford takes over the team in the interim. Ottawa will likely reevaluate their entire coaching staff during the offseason, but given the shape of their roster, they likely won't be the most desirable location for a potential candidate.
8 minutes left. DK Live's Julian Edlow, Matt LaMarca from the Action Network, both back with us because we just can't get rid of them, and also we want to talk basketball, so just kind of works out. LaMarca, real quick, anything you want to get off your chest?
I'm just real hurt. You know, I looked up to Reed Fowler. I admired him. And obviously it's not a mutual feeling. You know, I'm going to have to reevaluate myself, I think, after this show.
You're not mad. You're
what is this? This is way too nice.
Yeah.
I won't put myself on his level, Julian.
This is when people go before you in the show, you just got to make sure you're on after them. Then you can say anything you want about them. And Steve Buchanan's MVP Super Bowl take was the coldest of all time. And Reed, your haircut's not that great.
Wow.
Yeah. See, he's not on the show again. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, take that. You're muted, kid.
I was going to say, Julian, is there anything you want to get off your chest?
Yeah,
but there you go.
He knows no one's coming after him. He's good.
Well, earlier when I said back to the links, of course I meant this, basketball. So showdown contest tonight between the Bucks and Lakers. LeBron's hit 60 DK points in 3 straight. So is this a Bron night, Julian?
Yeah, it has to be in terms of this slate, and mostly because of Giannis's status. He played just 24 minutes the other night against the Sacramento Kings in his first game back from injury. So until we can trust Giannis,
I think we've lost him. We've lost Julian.
Feels like we lost Julian. Matt, do we still have you?
I'm going to say probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a real shot. We've lost both of them. But you know what? Things happen on
Reed,
Friday.
do we have you? No, I'm just kidding. We don't have anyone. So.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. It's unfortunate.
Cool, that is unfortunate. Well, we're just going to end the show because we have completely lost everybody. So,
and maybe our minds if we
Yes.
stick around for another 7 or 8 minutes. But the good thing to
Absolutely.
remember is the sweat, even though this particular edition is ending just a little abruptly
Just a
for
little
you. The
abruptly.
show itself is not going anywhere.
No.
Well, for the weekend, we are. We're
Yeah.
not going to do anything over
No,
the
we
weekend.
won't.
But starting Monday, we'll be right back with you and throughout the week, Monday through Friday. You can always catch the sweat, 6 to usually 7 o'clock Eastern on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and
DK Live app.
I don't know that you're actually on
download
Twitch,
that
but maybe.
app. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
maybe
get the DK Live app.
get on
Periscope.
Twitter. We'll have Lamarca. We'll have Lamarca and Julian put their picks on Twitter. So be sure to go check their Twitters before lineups.
Yeah,
lock.
follow them. Follow
Yeah.
those guys on Twitter because they
follow them.
desperately need it.
Yeah, and that's going to be all for us. I'm Jessie Coffield. He's Adam Kaufman. This has been a little bit of a shorter edition of The Sweat.
See you later.